You've felt this before. Your card gets declined. Your phone dies. The Wi-Fi at the cafe goes down, and suddenly the barista just stares at you. Because in that 10-second gap, you have no way to prove you're worth anything. It's strange when you think about it. You could have a job, a house, a full bank account, and still stand there like you own nothing at all. Now imagine that gap wasn't 10 seconds. Imagine it was 10,000 years. Here's the part that breaks most people's assumptions. Humans built cities, temples, irrigation systems, legal codes, and armies, all before anyone invented money. No coins, no bills, no app. And here's the twist economists don't love admitting. The story you were probably taught that before money people bartered, trading a chicken for a pair of shoes has almost no evidence behind it. Anthropologists have looked for a society that ran primarily on barter, and they basically can't find one. So if it wasn't barter, what was it? Two questions are going to carry this whole video. One, if people weren't swapping goods hand to hand, how did a farmer, a blacksmith, and a priest ever agree on what anything was worth? Two, what does that missing history say about what money actually is? Not a thing, but a relationship? Stay with me, because by the end, you'll never look at a $5 bill the same way again. This isn't just a history lesson. It's the story of trust, how strangers learned to believe each other before there was anything to hold in their hands as proof. Money didn't start as metal. It started as memory. A clay tablet in the mud of Mesopotamia. A stick, notched and split in half in medieval England. A 12-foot stone wheel, too heavy to move, sitting on an island in the Pacific. A belt of purple and white shells, worn like a crown by Iroquois diplomats. A monk in a monastery, writing down who owes what. 4 systems, 4 continents, 0 coins, 1 shared idea. Let's go back and meet the people who built it. The grain keeper. In the city of Uruk, in what's now southern Iraq, she worked inside the temple complex, and her job was simple to describe, impossible to overstate. She remembered who gave what. A farmer brought in barley. A shepherd brought in wool. The temple didn't hand them coins in return. It pressed a mark into wet clay, a record, a debt owed back to them, redeemable later for bread, beer, tools, land. The first money wasn't a coin you could carry. It was a promise you could trust, backed by an institution everyone believed in. That clay tablet is, in a very real sense, the ancestor of your bank statement. Once a temple could track thousands of debts, cities could grow past the size where everyone knew everyone. Strangers could trade with strangers because the temple remembered for them. But what happens when there's no temple? No king, no palace, no central ledger at all? Meet Alric, a tenant farmer near a small English manor, a composite figure built from records. Historians have pieced together from thousands like him. When Alric owed rent to his landlord, no gold changed hands. Instead, someone cut notches into a wooden stick, 1 notch per amount owed, then split the stick lengthwise, right through every notch. The landlord kept one half, Alric kept the other. Neither half could be forged, because only the other half fit the break perfectly. This half stick, called a tally, could later be traded, sold, or used to settle a completely different debt with a completely different person, because everyone trusted the wood didn't lie. Money doesn't require metal at all. It requires something that can't be faked, and people willing to accept it because someone else will too. Here's where it gets almost unbelievable. These tally sticks were still legally valid currency in England centuries later. The Bank of England didn't fully retire the system until the 1800s, but wood and clay both need something written down. What did people do with nothing to write on and no temple to remember for them? On the tiny island of Yap, communities carved massive stone discs called rye, some too heavy for a single person to lift, let alone steal. They quarried the limestone from an island hundreds of miles away, hauled it across open ocean on rafts, and set the finished stones outside villages as permanent fixtures. Here's the part that should stop you cold. Ownership of a stone could change hands completely during a marriage, a peace agreement, an inheritance, without the stone ever moving an inch. Everyone in the village simply knew whose stone it now was. One story, still told on the island, describes a stone that sank to the ocean floor during transport, and the community agreed it still counted as valuable because everyone remembered it existed and knew its size. The object barely matters. What matters is a community's shared, spoken memory of who owns what. That's not so different from a number in your banking app that you'll also never physically hold. Stone discs work in a small island community where everyone talks to everyone. But what happens when two nations with no shared language need to trust each other? Among the Haudenosaunee, the Iroquois Confederacy diplomats wove quahog and whelk shells into wide belts called wampum. These belts did something almost no other form of exchange in this story did. They recorded treaties. A belt's pattern of purple and white could be read for generations, reminding both sides exactly what they'd promised each other. Wampum moved goods, sealed peace agreements, and even carried messages between nations who'd never trade a single word otherwise, because a belt didn't need translating. Its meaning was witnessed and retold by elders on both sides, keeping both parties honest. Long before any coin, people had already solved the hardest problem in economics. How do you make a promise that outlives the person who made it? European colonists arrived and were startled to find a functioning economy with no coins in sight, and many tried, often clumsily, to fold wampum into their own trade systems, misunderstanding its meaning even as they used it. So if clay, wood, stone, and shells all worked, why did coins eventually take over almost everywhere? Because coins solved one problem all of them shared. They didn't need a temple, a village, or an elder to vouch for them. A coin carried its own trust, stamped right into the metal, a ruler's face, a guaranteed weight, a promise you could carry in your pocket, to a total stranger in a country you'd never visited. Coins didn't invent trust. They made trust portable. So back to that moment at the cafe. Your card declines. For one uncomfortable second, you're standing exactly where Alric stood, needing someone to trust you're good for it. Except now, you don't need a wooden stick or a stone the size of a car. You need a number on a screen, backed by a bank, backed by a government, backed ultimately by the same thing that backed a Sumerian clay tablet 5,000 years ago. People agreeing to believe each other. Every time you tap a card, you're not just spending money. You're using the oldest technology humans ever built. Not the wheel, not writing trust itself, just wearing a new disguise. And that declined card? It's not really a money problem. It's a 5,000-year-old trust problem wearing a very modern outfit.